Om Arunachala Shiva. Welcome to Arunachala Musings.
प्रपंचो यदि विद्येत निवर्तेत न संशयाः मायामात्रम् इदं द्वैतम् अद्वैतं परमार्थतः.
Prapancho Yadi Vidyeta Nivarteta Na Sanshaya. This Karika from the first chapter of Mandukya Karika. This is the 17th verse of 17th Karika of this chapter. And it is very important because it addresses a very subtle point related to Advaita Vedanta system. It says that Prapancho Yadi Vidyeta Nivarteta Na Sanshaya. That is, if this manifold universe, the universe that we perceive as I and the others and the world, as the subject-object duality, if it really exists, then no doubt it can be negated, it can be removed. But its existence is not absolute, it is relative. Maya matram idam dvaitam advaitam paramarthata. And hence the absolute reality, that is the Parabrahma, the real self of everyone, which is described as Satchidananda, pure consciousness, bliss, existence absolute. It alone exists. And when we say that an ignorant soul attains to knowledge, he or she realizes his or her real nature, then the manifold universe disappears. But this is said from the ignorant point of view. That is the point of view in which the subject-object duality, the manifold universe, is perceived as something existing separate from the substratum reality of Parabrahman. But what actually is negated is not the manifold universe, because it has no real existence. Only the substratum of absolute reality exists. This can be explained in terms of the popular example of Advaita Vedanta. That is, in darkness, the rope lying on the street is taken to be snake. It is mistaken to be snake. And the person who sees the snake in the rope is afraid, etc. But the snake really never ever exists. What exists is only the rope. So the imagination of snake on the rope is not an absolute reality on this rope. It is only the misperception of the onlooker. And when the knowledge of the snake is gained, where does the snake go? Was the snake there on the rope? No, it never was there. It was the mistake of the misperception of the onlooker that imagined the snake on the rope. And when the knowledge is gained that this is a rope and not a snake, then the snake is said to be vanished. But this, from the real rope perspective, the rope alone was there all the time. There never was a snake. In the same way, this duality that we experience as ourselves, as individual souls with the body, and others similarly with their body-mind complexes and the huge world, this is our misperception of the reality of God or the self or the heart or the Satchidananda, pure being, consciousness, bliss, God, or it is self, that is wrongly perceived as me, my personality, my emotions, thoughts, perceptions, body, and others with their body-mind complexes and the objects of the world. So when the knowledge of the real self is gained, that is when the Atma Gyan or Brahma Gyan is attained by the soul, it is not that the phenomenal universe disappears. The phenomenal universe never existed separate from the substratum of Brahman. Only our ignorance that the phenomena exists as some independent reality, that ignorance vanishes. And then we understand that the manifold is nothing but the substratum. And all the time it was the substratum that alone exists. So the second part of the Karika says, Advaitam Paramartha. Absolutely speaking, only the God alone exists, or the self, Atma or Brahma alone exists. And this Dvaitam, this manifoldness perceived in that God or that self is Maya Matram, is only an illusion or misperception of the Jiva, of the soul, ignorant soul. And hence the first part of the Karika, if the manifold really exists, Prapancho Yadi Vidyeta Nivartetna Sanshaya, it can be definitely be removed. But it is not some real entity existing which needs to be removed. So here a very subtle point is mentioned, that when people argue that you say that God alone exists, or the absolute being, consciousness, bliss, Satchidananda, Brahman alone exists, but we perceive this world and we feel this is real. So unless until this world is vanished, how can we realize that entity you call it as a God or truth? So here it is countered that what you experience is not an actual entity. That is your wrong reading of the Absolute itself. So this is very important Karika from the Advaita perspective, and serious spiritual seekers should deeply ponder over this. Om Tat Sat.